Hello friends and welcome to the Noclip Crewcast. It's episode 187 up in here, and we got the full crew here hanging out. About to talk about some visual games, talk about some documentaries, would you believe it? And also talk about the work that we're doing over here at Noclip. Quick bit of housekeeping right at the top in case you missed the announcement, which should have gone live by the time this is live. This feed is now going to start getting some of that Dear Dwyery goodness on it. So the Dear Dwyery feed that we started a couple months back, which has my new show, Dear Dwyery, the interview show on it that Jesse's doing an awesome job producing. We were trying to keep it on a fairly steady clip, and it sort of has like slowed down a little bit, and we're not really sure how often we can get it out. But in any case, I was like, you know what, if we can't keep this thing week, if we're falling down on keeping it bi-weekly and we're not looking at keeping it weekly, which is sort of the original idea, was can we eventually get this thing to weekly, then it probably doesn't justify its own feed. So we're gonna basically amalgamate it into this feed. So the Crewcast episodes should be really obvious where they are. They'll have their own logo, they have their own title, of course, and the same will be the case for Dear Dwyery. So if you see episodes of Dear Dwyery popping up on here, give them a listen every couple of weeks, every week, once every 3 weeks, maybe in patches sometime, and maybe a little bit looser some other times. Yeah, we're just going to keep it all here focused on this feed, which should be a little bit easier for people to follow. Enough housekeeping, though. Let's talk to the house. We are the house sitters, the people who we all share this apartment, the wonderful apartment that is Noclip. Jeremy, your rent is due.
I thought the paycheck would be. I thought it would be deducted from the paycheck, and I was good.
Yes, that's true. We run this kind of like Ersties, that like sex cults that PMG did a YouTube video on, where you can, your wages go immediately into your rent. So I'm gonna need.
I haven't seen that one. Wait, how is that gaming related? Is it a gamer?
I think they started making their own game, so it crossed the threshold. Okay. And Chris was
maybe they're not so bad after all.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Okay, there we go.
I'm just kidding. I don't know anything about this. I'm just joking.
Jeremy is a shadow member of Ersties, and he's trying to
to launder their reputation.
invade Noclip. Jesse, what's your favorite sex cult?
Boy, that's a tough question. There's so many to choose from. I'm gonna go with the Subway people from 2000 and when did they get Jared Fogle? That's mine. That's my pick.
Nice.
They exposed the foot-long lie that
we should have known.
Has been selling us. Yeah.
When they were selling us, meatball footlongs, it was right there the whole time, right in front of our eyes, and often inside of our mouths. Frank Howley, what's your favorite Subway sandwich?
I honestly, cold cut trio, Italian, spicy Italian.
Wait, why does Frank get the easy question?
Yeah, we get sex cults.
And Frank gets his favorite sandwich.
Frank's my favorite son. I know he's the youngest of the three. He's actually, I'm not sure
rent
if he is
is due.
He's not. I am.
Yeah, there you
go. Have you been in ever since they've pushed this whole, pick a number based on like they've tried to do it like a bullpen of a baseball team or something, where like each sandwich has its own number now? Have you seen this? Mm-mm. No? Am I the only person that goes to Subway still?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
God, I am. You guys haven't been in a Subway in a year. You just out.
I think you're the only person that goes to Subway in the country.
Yeah, they've been taking over. Jersey Mike's is so good. Togo's is good.
Firehouse is good.
Oh man, Togo. I don't know. Is Jersey Mike's on this coast? Are we? I saw one of those maps of like, here are the most common restaurants in America, and I could not believe Subway was the most common. Subway was the one
by a wide margin.
Yeah, it's like every gas station.
You know what it is? Because it's really easy to do a Subway. McDonald's, you got to have fryers, you got to have all that other nonsense. Subway, at most, you need like a microwave and a grill, and that's just two power outlets.
You do. You just need that one toaster they have.
Yeah, with the conveyor belt that runs it through.
That like just it cooks for 60 seconds. And that's it. You just put the thing in.
And it makes the most horrifying beep if you don't take it out in time.
Exactly, yeah. You're like, hurry up. Profits. Yeah, I'm a big fan of a Subway. I like eating mattresses as much as I can. And so do all these amazing people. Our Battle Pass holders who support Noclip to a sort of, I would say, sick, uncomfortable level. But we are sort of bonded together in this dark dance. So here we are, jumping around the maypole, holding hands with Eamon Slattery, Harry Flanagan, Battle Royale Games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Marco Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, David McGarry, Sven Huster, Brian Marsh, Uint Nate, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Jonathan Kremen, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Laird, Zachary Snader, Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, Tohir Tiliev. Always love seeing Tohir Tiliev's shorts pop up on my feed. Keep them up, Tohir. And of course, Ryson as well, which always reminds me of
a new
Ricicles.
name in there, by the way?
What'd you say?
Brandon Marsh or Brad Marsh? Or?
Some people just decided, some people may have been Crimson Cyclists before. Some people may have been, somebody else did a name swap as well. I forget who it was. I could probably hit Control Z on this a lot and find what it was before. But yeah, people like to...
fair.
You can mix it up if you want. Eric Hamilton Schneider, you want to stick another name in there? Go for it. Keep going.
A fourth name.
The only one who's not allowed is Cameron Ladd. Cameron's allowed stick extra D's on the end of his name. That's it. And anywhere else, he so desires.
All right.
All right, let's talk about some video games here. Jesse, I'm actually going to go to you first because I played a bit of this, but I didn't play enough of it, and I'm interested in what you have to say about it. Arranger, a role puzzling adventure. This is how would you explain it? It's a top-down puzzle game where you are controlling a 2D character, but they sort of move the world that they're on in cardinal directions. And I would say the last thing to say about it visually is that it is from the artist What Done Braid. So it has a very sort of braid-like look to it. And also, I believe, written by friend of Noclip, Nick Sutner as well. So, Oakland's own. So yeah, what have you been making of Arranger, a role-puzzling adventure?
Yeah, to your point, I have not played much of this either. I put it in the dock thinking I would play more of it, but
we
I
both
just haven't
did
had
the
the chance.
thing where we were hoping the other person had played more of it.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
That's what me and Jeremy with PsychOdyssey. I'm hoping he's seen more of the last episode than I have.
I watched the whole
you did?
thing.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
good.
God. Okay,
At least someone's doing their homework.
Exactly.
No, Arranger, yeah, I think you described it pretty well. Looks-wise, braid-ish, I think is a fair comparison. Gameplay-wise, it kind of plays like those... like sliding block puzzles that you'd play where you kind of have to move a piece to move another piece. And someone described it, not me, but I'll pretend it's me now, as a Rubik's Cube unfolded. And every move you do moves a line of the world, basically. So like if you want to talk to somebody to the right of you, you can't just keep moving to the right. You have to move up and then over and then down to talk to them. So there's a lot of like complex interactions you have to consider when moving around. The blocks also on the map will like stop you from moving. So it's also like the edges of the areas that you're in. Everything is sort of laid out like a box splayed into bits, but like a really complex box. And you move across the edges of the screen. So if you hit the left, you'll come back around from the other side.
Like Pac-Man. If you exit left, you'll sort of enter right on that horizontal or vertical like section or whatever.
Exactly. It wraps around. And the challenge there is sometimes there are things in the area. I've only finished the tutorial area, which is what the demo was. But it's a really strong, I think, introduction to the mechanics and the sort of things to look out for as you move forward. I'm assuming they build on top of those systems. But yeah, so if there's something on the map in the early area, there's a duck in one of the spots, and the duck kind of gets in the way of you doing things, so you have to maneuver around him. And then when you come back around to the same area, you have an item that you have to carry around with you. Like the plot of the game is basically the introduction. You're this character who's abandoned by their mother for some reason, and you're taken into the city, and the people don't like you because you don't fit in, not just because you're a weirdo, but because like the way that you move around actually interrupts the lives of these characters.
Shit. Yeah. Every time you come on a road, you're like knocking people off ladders and stuff. And they're like,
yeah. That was so funny. Yeah. There's a character who just straight up hates you because like you can't. She's like, you're always knocking stuff over. I'm trying to make the city look pretty and you're ruining it.
It's an interesting framing for a game that is ostensibly a like level-based puzzle game, but it's actually not. Like it's set in a sort of Zelda-like setup where you exit your house and then go on an adventure, which I thought was novel, at least. You know what I mean?
It's very cool. I think a lot of puzzle games like this, like that try to do the Sogoban style thing, can fall into a trap where, like, this is sort of a reverse Sogoban, if anything. But like they said, they tend to fall into a trap where they just focus on singular mechanical concepts and like they build on them between levels. But here, a ranger did, and again, just in the tutorial area, I'm sure they do more of it later. But there's a puzzle that takes place near the end of the area, which is sort of you leaving the main town that you grew up in. And the puzzle involves like bells that you have to ring, but one of the bells is broken. And you can't, like, there's no bell you can find in the dungeon. There's nothing going on. It's sort of a dungeon that you can find in that area. You have to sort of come to the conclusion of a character that you've been passing this whole time. There's a cat in town with a bell on its neck. And when you pass it, the bell rings. So when
Spoilers.
you like run it, spoil. It's the tutorial area. It's like 30 minutes in.
Players have to learn things by themselves. That's the point of a tutorial.
True.
So
this is true.
Yeah, try not to remember this when you're playing it.
Just forget about it. It's a fun, cute puzzle. But it's you get the bell, you bring the cat, and something happens. It's just a really cool way of doing it, where like you have to remember the world and the world's little moments and like
it's using the overworld basically as part of the sort of the puzzles for the game.
Yeah, the overworld is the puzzle.
It's a game as well. You know, it is layering a lot of like different things. There's movement based stuff. There's different objects in the world. It does a lot of the braid, like it's very braid like in that like. Do you remember in Braid where you would have to collect the keys and then like some of the keys were sort of glowing purple with this sort of this magical thing that meant they were outside of time, or like not even the keys, like some of the baddies were as well. So if you were reversing time, sometimes other elements within the world wouldn't follow that law. And this does a similar thing where there are objects within the world that if you are moving left and right, they actually won't move at all. So it's just like there's a visual language to the game that you're sort of uncovering area by area, and they're making stuff more complex. And I think because of this overworld nature to it, you have a sort of a almost like a Metroidvania aspect to it as well, where you're reconsidering stuff you've seen in the past and going back now that you've either gotten new abilities or you've uncovered a new sort of visual language within the world. So I'm excited to play some more of it. I'm playing it on Steam. I think it might only be on Steam. I'm not quite sure.
No, it's on other platforms. And actually, part of the reason I wanted to talk about it, because I haven't played a ton of it, but again, I wanted to discuss it because there is another way to play this game that's really cool, and it's on your phone. And I've mentioned this before. If you have Netflix,
it's a Netflix game.
Here we go. I'm doing it. They don't send me any money to do this, but if you have a Netflix, I do this because people have Netflix subscriptions.
You don't have to,
and
I don't have to
so much
explain that something's on a different platform. Like
no, I don't want to. Like
I'm not getting money from Steam or Nintendo when we talk about games. Yeah,
I'm not. But point being, if you have a Netflix subscription, you should go out of your way to use all of it because it is a lot of money, usually too much a month. And if you have a phone or an iPad, you could download this game and play it. Not for free, but included with your subscription, along with a ton of other really good stuff.
Yeah,
it's like Game Pass. Yeah,
it's on Netflix.
But it's cool because like
else.
No, but it's the way that you play it is not like, I feel like a lot of games when they are console games on a TV, they tend to not translate well to mobile or iPad.
Yeah.
But here, because it's all just moving up, down, left, right, there's not really much else to do outside of like talking to characters by pressing A on them. You can just tap on the character and swipe on the screen. It's very intuitive and it feels really good. It feels like a mobile game first, even though I'm like 50% sure it's not. So
yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it feels like a mobile game first, because that might give people the wrong impression that it feels that it doesn't.
But
feel
when you
like,
play it on mobile, it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong there.
I agree that the control scheme for this game translates well to mobile. But it on PC, I'm really enjoying it. It's also works really good on it's a Steam Deck good vibe game. Feels like a sort of a cozy little puzzler. It's $20 on Steam at least, and then part of Netflix, I guess. If you pay for Netflix, you don't have to pay any more on top to get it over there. They're selling a soundtrack as well for about $10 on top of that. It looks like it's got very positive reviews on Steam. Not a whole bunch of them, so might be slowly gathering some steam over there, as it were. Arranger, a role puzzling adventure. Jeremy, PsychOdyssey. So they put up a new episode 33, I think it is.
Yes.
it's sort of like it's a long episode. It's like 90 minutes, right? And it's sort of like what would you call it? Is it an addendum? Is it a follow-up? Is it a where are they
it's like
now?
a epilogue. Yeah, the where is they now thing is it's like at the end of a Fallout game where it's like John went on to be the mayor of Shittown. It's that, but it's all of the lovely people you've come to know over the other 32 episodes of PsychOdyssey. Yeah, it came out very recently. It was only 5 days ago. And kind of out of nowhere. I didn't know this was coming. I don't know if they announced this at all or anything, but it's accompanying a physical release that they're doing. Is that the idea?
Yes, they have a limited run Blu-ray of the whole set of the whole series. It's available for $75. I think they might be down to their last orders on it. I think there's a hard limit on the amount they're doing or something. I saw Tim Schafer texting it. It looks like a nice, beautiful box with what appears to be 8 Blu-rays, I think, full of content on it.
It's a lot of documentary on those discs. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. It adds an interesting ripple to the kind of the formula of PsychOdyssey, which is that as they're all kind of aware that they're making a documentary as they're in the documentary, but you get the sense as it goes on that they're like increasingly aware of the amount of their lives that have been documented. And now this is kind of post the other 32 episodes being released as a whole cohesive unit. And so there's a lot of discussion of, yeah, I mean, like imagine any conversation you've had at work that got a little tense or like a negotiation or like your boss chastised you and then there was no catharsis. It's kind of like everyone getting to go back and watch all of these moments that happened and be like, oh shit, is that how I was acting? Or like, yeah, that was fucked up when that happened. And everyone else is like, yeah, man, there's one part, I can't remember his name, but one of the dudes, I'll have to look up his name in a second. He was talking about how there was a moment where someone was kind of like shutting down Anna Kipnis, who ended up leaving the company during the series. And in this moment, he's like, I can't believe that happened. Like, there's no way I was in the room when that was happening. And then the camera cuts to him in the room, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe that I just sat there and let someone do this to her. And it is interesting how in the moment, I think it's a lot easier to kind of just, fade into the background and not be the guy who's like, hold on a minute, let me mediate this situation. Because it's just like, it's, hindsight is 20/20, and it's also just, it's like, it's awkward. Like, it's fucking awkward, especially around creative work. I think that's the thing that stood out for me from this episode is it's very like, this isn't like a place where people go to work and they do spreadsheets and they're like, yeah, the Johnson report just got finished. It's like people are pouring their heart and soul into these things. And if you have an idea for a level and you're like, I want this is going to be like a beautiful waterfall here. And then someone's like, so like, do we just do the waterfall there? Or do we want to actually do something interesting? You're like, fuck, dude, that's my waterfall, man. So, yeah, it's a very sort of like meta, like coiling in on itself reflection on the creative process and all of these people kind of getting a moment where they all get to see how they're perceived and how other people perceive them and get to relive all these moments.
Was there much? I know the two-player production people themselves are pretty, they hide behind the camera a bit, unless one of them moves on to the dev team and then it's fair game, I guess. But we had them on the podcast, I don't know, a year or so ago, talking about the project. Maybe a bit longer, actually. Are they in it at all? Do they talk at all about their experience?
A little bit. I don't think any of them are in front of the camera, unless I overlooked it. There are moments though where you can hear. I believe it was Paul behind the camera talking to Tim from behind the camera, and there was a couple moments where different people on the dev team expressed to them that like, I wish I had known this was going on. I wish I had known that this was the way it was. I wish I had known. And they keep being like, I don't blame you guys for not coming to me with the footage and being like, hey, look how fucked up this is. Because that's also not your job as a documentarian, I mean, you could do that. It's a certain type of documentary filmmaker that gets involved, like a gonzo journalism thing. But even then, it's like, I don't know. I understand why you wouldn't. It's making like a socially editorial call where you're like, hey, this is fucked up enough that I need to like export a part of the documentary for my boss and show it to him. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird.
Yeah. I don't prescribe to the idea that documentary should be there to fix the problems of everyone. It's not part of HR or therapy. Yeah, and you pick what version of the truth you show, of course, but the thing about PsychOdyssey is there's so much in it. Like, it's 32 episodes that are long, and you feel like you're just like in the shit with them. I found it really, because I've watched the opening 30 minutes or so, I found it like really shocking that like they were interviewing them 2 years later, and they seem like they're still like traumatized by the experience of making that game. And it seems like a fun place to work, but you're still like, Jesus, like even at Double Fine, people are just having a hard time. Like they all talked about how they took a chunk of time off work immediately. Some people moved, some people got married, sort of escaping it. That stood out to me. Well, how does it sort of, without revealing you maybe too much, but like, how does it sort of end, I guess, episode 33? Does it talk at all about the Microsoft stuff, or any of that? Or
I think they address it a little bit. It's the latter parts of it are more about kind of how the dynamic of the studio has shifted in the era of COVID. So the studio is kind of still hybrid. Some people are fully remote and stuff. And they talk about how sort of, Tim as like the old guard of game development in general, but the studio in particular, longs for the days when it was like everyone was there together. Everyone was kind of like chumming it up, and like you could look over and be like, whoa, what's that you're working on? That's cool, man. Like, what about this? And there was more of an organic flow of ideas. And then everyone would, whatever, go out to the bars in Chinatown afterwards or whatever. And you get a sense that there is a real mourning over the loss of that. But also, like, it's kind of the best thing that I've seen that addresses both sides of that issue, because they also talk about how, like, everyone came back to the studio, everybody got sick, and then it's like, it's part of life, but it's also, I'm trying to think of like a parallel. It's kind of like the member, when you're on the outside looking in, when you're watching a documentary about like a band touring the world, you're like, whoa, that must be so cool to be like a member of the band. But then one of the people in the band like is so stressed from touring that they get really into heroin, and you're like, oh man, you fumbled it. And it's like, yes, being part of the band is awesome, but also it comes at a great personal cost, and there is a less romanticizable element of the band that is all of these individual lives. And so when it comes to the COVID safety stuff, it's like, I get it. Like, for most people, it's fine. But for the like 5% of people who have super long-term effects from it, it's like, even that low of a percentage of risk, to have that personal risk be an element of just like going into work, like if that's the cost of being around people, to be like, whoa, what if that guy could like jump higher? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's a moving target where it's like, yeah, it's cool to make video games great, but also like the individual people need to be like healthy and feel safe and feel respected, and like they have boundaries in order to effectively do those things. Yeah. So it's easy to just be like, we should all get back in the office and make video games. That it's like, I don't know, they have a very honest relationship to the safety element of it as well, which I thought was refreshing.
And there's probably a lot of people as well who don't want to go back for non-safety related issues. They're just like, I like working from home, or like I work better.
That is part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, get to see
there's
my
one
kids
guy,
more, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, the commute to San Francisco fucking sucks. Like,
it's awful, dude. Yeah, there is one person in particular who talks about that they had always felt like kind of out of step and had issues with kind of mental health and balancing their energy and stuff. And as soon as they switched to work from home, it was like, holy shit! It like unlocked their life for them, which is like, I relate with that super hard, because I just like, I don't know. I like to keep weird hours sometimes. Like, I don't know. You guys know, sometimes I'll post in the staff chat at 5 a.m. and be like, I just finished editing this thing. It's awesome. It just works for my brain. It's way harder for me to sit down for 8 hours and just do something. Whereas if it's like, maybe I have my coffee, I do 2 hours of color grading in the morning, then I go for a walk, then I come back, I have lunch, and then I get back to work, and then I do like 4 more hours, take a break, do 2 hours at night, and it adds up to a full day. But it's like, if you're doing that at the office, you're there for like 14 hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it doesn't translate particularly well. Did you guys watch the series? I forget who watched how much of it, because it is quite an investment.
Yeah, I still need to play it. I started playing Psychonauts 2 years ago, and I need to get back to it, because now, like, this, I mean, I had this conversation like a year ago. Like, this is the ultimate supplemental material for any game ever made. Like, so it's pushing me to play it sooner. But I haven't watched it or played it yet.
Yeah, no, me neither. It seems really good. Like, obviously, people have been talking about it really positively, and there's a quote from the Noclip team on the page for the Blu-ray, which is really cool
Oh,
to
is
see.
there really?
Yeah. I think
cool.
something you said is on there underneath Midmax, who got the bigger title at the top. What the fuck?
It's because it's the more positive quote.
Of course.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I don't remember. But no, I think it's important that we have this kind of stuff. And I think the embedded documentary over that many years is something that I think, Danny, you've talked about, whether publicly or privately, about how that's kind of something that it would be great for us to do, but financially just doesn't make any sense unless you are paying for, like, unless the studio's paying for it out of pocket for themselves, for their own project. Because it's like, that's years of work with nothing to see from it until, you know, the end of the project. And for most games, that's 4, 5, 6 years. So this is like a not once in a generation, but definitely something that's rare and special. And I hope we see more of in the future from more studios.
Yeah, or hopefully they're still, I mean, it's seemingly they are still there, which is great. And, you know, we'll see if the Microsoft hammer comes down. I think they only made, what was it, 44 billion profit last year in their games or whatever. I guess Activision's paid for itself, but at the cost of a bunch of other studios. Hopefully they continue to do it. But yeah, I agree. It's like, it's something we would never be able to do, because and especially now, like, it came up when we were talking to Supergiant about doing a second season of Developing Hell, where it's like, how do you do that series if people aren't coming into the studio? Like, it's
that too.
Maybe this is maybe episode 33 was not episode 33. Maybe originally it was episode 1, 2, and 3 of a new thing. But it's hard to put that together. I have no idea, but I empathize with them on you know, people don't want to watch Zoom interviews for entertainment over the course of a, you know, 30 episode run of something or whatever. You know, we just about got away with it in the Hades doc because it was novel and weird, and because it was the final 2 episodes of the series, of a series of 6. So it's not so bad. And then the novelty was us going and filming in those back gardens, Jeremy. Do you remember? Like, it felt so odd, the whole thing. I'm not sure if you watch it now if it comes across as odd as it was. But yeah, absolutely fantastic series. To Frank's point, I actually played the game after I watched the series and found that really interesting, because I was more excited to see what it was, kind of like visiting Dubrovnik after you'd watched Game of Thrones or something, where I was like, oh, I wonder what I'll notice. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of that type of vibe. So I would also recommend that if people are holding off on watching the series until they play the game. It is a big commitment of a watch, but it's pretty incredible. And if you are one of the, it looks like 2,000 people who are going to be able to get access to this PsychOdyssey Blu-ray set, head over to Limited Run Games, and they have it up there. It looks like it's still pre-ordering. It is. If I go to buy it, it's still there. But I think they said they were down to their last 500 a couple of days ago. So by the time this goes live, it might already be closed, but go check it out. They're estimating shipping in December of this year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Next up, let me get Fallout London out of the way. So Fallout London, the latest game from Bethesda Gameworks. Fallout London, I think we talked about it a few months ago when they tried to put it up and Bethesda patched Fallout 4 for the anniversary. And it sort of screwed it up a little bit. Fallout London is a full conversion mod for Fallout 4 that essentially creates a brand new map and campaign set in, you guessed it, London, the capital of the United Kingdom, somewhere I called home for about 5 years. It's got voiceover. It's got its own version of a Pip-Boy, which kind of looks like a little tape player, which I really quite liked. It has its own version of the Fallout Vault Boy himself, presumably because there are limits to the amount of IP you can get away with, maybe IP theft, or maybe they just want to do their own sort of like British BBC kind of version of that. It's set in and around London. It has plenty of its own factions, all of this sort of stuff. It also is hard to install and crashes constantly, making it a really good Fallout game. It's
perfect. It's the full experience.
Exactly. So let me just tell you about the technical side of things, I guess, first of all. So the only way to get this mod, it was too big for them to put it up on Nexus Mods. So the heroes at GOG over at CD Projekt decided to host it for them, because I think it's like, what is it, like 90 gigs or something. It's really big, because it's got it's a whole game basically. So the way to install it, if you're on Steam, you have to do like a version rollback. So basically not the new version that Bethesda put up. You also have to have all of the DLCs installed, but ideally not the high-res texture pack installed. So it's a little bit messy. If you do it over on GOG, it's easier. They're selling Fallout 4 at the moment for a reduced price. I think it's $15. And then you add Fallout London to your library. And then when you go to hit play, it basically overrides Fallout 4. But it also means like, you're going to overwrite your save games. If you've cloud saves turned on, it's also going to override all your Fallout 4 cloud saves over on GOG. So just like, be careful. I didn't care about that. I tried to get it working on Steam and found the process so annoying that I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw GOG $15 for helping to facilitate this, and it'll make my life a little bit easier as well. So I did it over there. It's a little bit clunky in terms of like, if you want to change the resolution, you kind of have to go open Fallout 4, go to the config for like the little pop-up configurator, do all that, close it, and then go back to Fallout London and open it there. Fallout 4 doesn't have widescreen support, so neither does this game, so I've been playing it windowed. It crashes a lot. It's crashed on me like 15 times in the opening 3 hours or something. So I've been saving all the time. There is a mod you can download called Buff Out 4, I think it's called, that apparently fixes a lot of these crashes. There's also a couple of other things you can do, like turning off like weapon decals or something. There's like a bunch of these other things. I haven't installed the Buff Out 4 thing, because to do that I need to install the Nexus mod manager and all this shit, which is the whole thing I was trying to avoid in the first place, trying to streamline this whole thing as much as I can. So you do have to jump through some hurdles to get this thing to even sort of work, I would say. How does it play? I've kind of not, like, I've spent a lot of time with this thing crashing and trying to set it up, that my actual game time is only about, like, I've played 4 hours maybe, but I think it might be closer to 2 with all the crashes that have sent me back. It's very on rails at the start. You know, you wake up and you have to make your character and do all that sort of stuff. I liked where they had me. I know London very well, so like I liked the areas they're talking about and where you pop out and what's going on. And there's like a faction on the Isle of Dogs called like the Dog Boys or something. And there's like all of this sort of stuff. There's voice acting in it, and the lines, the dialogue that I've enjoyed. The setup at the start with the different antagonists, I'm not sure if I was super into all that, but maybe it comes good later. It was very Bioshocky and weird. But, you know, it's early days, so it's hard to tell. And then apart from that, it plays like Fallout 4. And Fallout 4, I really liked how Fallout 4 played. I liked the gunplay in Fallout 4. I liked the inventory management, the map, and all that sort of stuff. The map is quite restrictive at the start. It's kind of like the Boston parts of Fallout 4, where you're largely getting funneled. You know, that it's like open world, but like, is it open? You know, or like when we went back and played Fallout New Vegas, and we were like, wow, this is the least open world game. Now that we go back and play it, so I'm not sure how much it opens up afterwards. But for the moment, it's been quite linear. There's basically been a do you want to turn left or right choice they kind of give you early on once you've done the tutorials sort of area. I chose left, just so you know. But yeah, it's I like Fallout games. I think full conversion mods are so rare and take so long and take so much effort that you're willing to, you know, forgive the bugs, especially for something that is free. Yeah, it's a weird thing. And the reviews I've read have said it makes good on a lot of its promises. So I'm excited to play more. I just need to stop this fucking thing from crashing, because it does one of those crashes where suddenly you're looking at your desktop and you were like doing something. Oh, wow. You're like
not even like a pop-up or anything. Like this was the error code. Just oh wow.
Just done.
Yeah, that sounds accurate to the Fallout New Vegas experience or any other, like you said, Fallout game. You mentioned the Pip-Boy changing, and I think Fallout is very like, not I think it just is very steeped in Americana and like early 2000s American lifestyle and culture, and it's critical of, you know, capitalist concepts from that era, but also the technology and the style and the graphic design from those eras. I guess the Pip-Boy is maybe representing some part of that, of like trying to do what would the UK version of that look like. Were there other things that made you feel that same sort of way in your early hours of London? Or
yeah, great question. I think that is sort of the stylistic cornerstone of this, is that they're leaning into the sort of BBC, 60s, early television look, 50s look, the sort of nanny state, post-war nanny state sort of stuff, the keep calm and carry on, the mind
keep calm
the
and
gap.
Fallout on.
You know what I mean? There's a lot. Yeah. So like the thing they use instead of the Vault Boy, which is sort of on posters and also on the they gave it a really good name as well. I wish I could remember it. The name of the Pip-Boy in Fallout 4 has got or in Fallout. I'll try to see if I can look it up. In Fallout London is quite smart. But the graphical style and the thing, it's sort of like it's a cartoon of like a sort of like a nuclear family, as it were, and I like it. It's like it looks it evokes a similar sort of style that I remember from seeing old BBC commercials. Like the game literally starts with like a what would you call it, like a intro video of like where in your house you should hide if a nuclear bomb goes off, and it goes on for like way too long, I think, but like it's a good like sort of setup of, oh, this is something you would have seen, like a PSA you would have seen on the BBC. Like it has that feeling. Then the logo itself and the sort of I don't know, maybe another visual cornerstone of it is the London Underground. So there's a lot of like, the logo for Fallout London is basically an underground sort of logo. It's like it's sort of cribbing off that as well. So yeah, I don't know what era of London is it, like maybe a mixture of like 50s, 60s, 70s, because obviously it's it's futurist. Like Fallout takes place in the middle of the 2000 and whatever it is, 60 or something like that, where it's sort of like whipped back around. But I wish I could remember the name of the British Pip-Boy. It's got
is it Attaboy?
Attaboy, that's it.
That's good.
It's very good.
I liked it. I thought that was smart. So it's got a lot of that. Yeah, jumping through subways and shit. Maybe the Spice Girls are in it. I don't know.
I hope so.
Do you? I'm not sure if this is accurate. Do you need to own Fallout 4 and all of the DLC still to play this game?
Yeah, it needs to be Game of the Year edition.
Okay, cool. Just for people who own just Fallout 4 and not the DLC, it just wanted to let them know.
Yeah, you need to have all of them, but they recommend turning off the texture pack, which you can't do. There's a bunch of YouTube videos, a bunch of tutorials if you want to go through the whole rigmarole of doing it. It wasn't that long. Doing it through GOG was pretty seamless, I'll say, but I just need to figure out all the crashing. And like, there are plenty of games that don't work with a widescreen monitor, so I'm kind of used to that at this stage. I have a particularly widescreen one as well, which a patron sent to us as well, which is remarkable. That's now my favorite editing monitor. It's the best. I got really long timelines on it, so our docs are even better. So thank you very much for sending that over. I wish I remembered that person's name. I think I sent them an email. I definitely sent them an email back thanking them for it. I think I did. Fallout London. Any more questions about Fallout London?
No, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
There you go. It's made by Fallout London team. It's kind of fucking crazy that they were allowed to call it Fallout London. I know I maybe come across as overly protective of Bethesda GameWorks, but I do feel like Bethesda Game Studios, Bethesda Softworks, but I do feel like they got some shit for updating their own game, which I thought was kind of like a bit OTT. Like, are they not allowed to update their own fucking game without people?
They're stopping the mod developers.
Yeah, the mod developers are like, oh, they didn't get in contact with us to tell us that they were doing. Like, they're not giving you a fucking cease and desist for you using the Fallout logo in your game.
Yeah,
like,
just a good point.
Fucking, count your chickens a little bit. You know what I mean? So I think it's cool that this thing exists. I think it's kind of crazy that this thing exists, given the fact that it has a naming convention that they have literally used, like Fallout New Vegas. Like, they have used this exact naming convention. So I think a little bit of credit should be given to Bethesda for not. They probably can't acknowledge this thing or talk to those people, because to do so would open the legal can of like. at what stage are you basically allowing somebody to use your IP and then you are setting precedent? Like, I don't know how this stuff works. Obviously, the Black Mesa situation with Valve, they wrapped that whole thing in contracts for this exact reason. But they haven't done it in this case. So I think GOG should get a massive shout out. I think Bethesda should be given a high five for letting them do this. And congratulations to the mod team, the development team, who presumably have been working this on them for a very, very long time. The main reason I want to play it is to explore their version of London, and so far I've been enjoying that until it crashes. So hopefully we'll solve that part of it.
It's unprecedented just for the scope and scale of this mod as well. I feel like I've seen a lot of mods over the years that are total conversion mods for different Fallout games. I think there was a Fallout Texas as well that fell off, or like it's called like Fallout Lone Star.
Did it never get finished? I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's Fallout Lone Star. Yeah. And it just, I mean, it's hard to make video games. It's hard to make total conversion mods. It's like I don't know. I just wanted to give a shout out to this team for actually seeing this through, having a vision for something. And, I mean, at the end of the day, these are people who love Fallout enough to take a Fallout game and make a Fallout game of their own out of it. So that's an insane accomplishment.
Yeah, it's very cool. And think how much harder it would have been to do London than Texas. Like, fucking, there's no desert in London.
Yeah, there's a lot of sand textures they could have taken from New Vegas, just slapped them on there.
It's crazy. It's like the most dense. This might be the most dense Fallout map. Maybe that's what I need to do. I need to look at the ground more. Maybe it's just like loading too much of London at one time every time I look up. Fallout London, available for free as long as you want Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition, available on GOG or Steam, and then Fallout London itself available on GOG. Frank Howley, let's talk about this little oddity that Capcom announced. I think it was about a year. Maybe it was this year they announced it. I forget when they announced it. Was it the Game Awards, perhaps? Sort of a fun little, B game, I guess you could call it, from Capcom. We don't see this very often. Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, is available now on Steam for $50. There's also a demo. How have you been enjoying this? What is it? It's like a character action, third person hack and slashy kind of thing.
Yeah, I would describe it as like a yokai Pikmin. It's an action like tower defense game with like RTS elements. The premise of the game, every level is like this is gonna be the most dumb way of explaining it, but this is my lens. You're a samurai badass dude and you have to protect a princess. You have to take the princess to the end of a gate on each stage. You have to purge the defilement of all these evil spirits in the land. And so every area you go into an environment and there's a gate, and at night demons come out of the gate, but you can recruit villagers in the town, and each villager you can assign a different role, like Age of Empires or whatever. So there's like a woodcutter who's a samurai. You can have them be archers, and you just fight these enemies in ways as you're also micromanaging your little units to attack and protect the princess. And at the end of the cycle, you move on. You can level up and upgrade them, and it's like, it is like a B game, like a PS2 game, but it's why I'm freaking out and loving this, where it's like, it's great. It is on Xbox Game Pass, so I was able to play it for free, or whatever, the $20 a month, whatever. It's on, PlayStation, Steam, and all this. The style of it is like old school Japan, that like, I mean, it's like beyond just yokai, but that very, I don't know, traditional.
Like the art style, you mean?
Yeah.
It's very, how would you explain it? It does look very Japanese, but like in terms of the costumage and like it's outdoors set in forests and stuff like that, right? So you're getting a lot of that sort of beautiful outdoor looking Japanese aesthetic, lots of classical costumes. You mentioned a lot of words that made it sound like a strategy or but this game is played from like a third person, like you're controlling one character, right?
Yeah, so you're controlling one guy who's running around. You can kind of adjust the camera. You can like press X to zoom in or zoom out, but it's you can even crane it so it's like over the third person or whatever. So yeah, you're one person. You have hack and slash, like square is your quick attack, triangle is your strong one. You can do your specials every now and then as it recharges, and you're kind of checking in on your units. You can change rolls anytime. You can heal them.
How do you do that?
So you go up and you just press like RB and you just say, okay, right now. So depending on what enemies come out, so there'll be demons that only archers can shoot at. So you want to make sure you have archers available, or you can even have people be. You can change classes to be thieves, so they go and steal rations, or you use units to level up your thing. So you're constantly like assessing the area. There's different pathways, and you're also building defenses, so you can build gates to slow enemies down. So it's
similar thing where like you're walking around in third person. You're going up to them. You're like triggering some sort of menu on them, is it? And then how about the build? Can you move those people?
Yeah, so you can station them, so you can like have them patrol a certain area. So like before, it's like there's phases. There's the daytime where you're scavenging the area, collecting rations, finding villagers, giving them a role, and then you can position the units. So be like, all right, patrol this area, patrol this area. So I'll have like. You can have like a tank unit in the center. You can have someone slowing them down, archers further back, and it shows you like their cone of radius to see what if units come in, they'll attack. So so what I like is it keeps me so locked in for like the 15 to 30 minutes as it's going. A lot of times when I'm playing games, I'll quickly like, okay, I'm kind of I'll kind of lose it, but it's nonstop, and that's why I'm like, oh my god, this is great. This is just enough.
So you said the first phase was the daytime.
Yes.
What were the other ones?
So there's daytime you're prepping, and then at night is when the demons only come out at night. Just like in my head. No.
Fucking new metal song over here.
Oh, well done. Well done.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so yeah. I don't know. So it's cool. It's really what I like. It's such a huge surprise, and this is by like Capcom's A team. Like it's a lot of people who worked on Resident Evil, Devil May Cry. So it just has that like it's cool. The Capcom cool factor is there. And then the bonus part is like it's stage selects. You're progressing through. Every level has like 3 extra objectives that you can grind or farm, so you can strengthen up. So every unit has skill trees that you can level up, so they do more damage or have special abilities. And there's like a fun base building element. Again, I compare it to like Age of Empires, where on the mini map you can go to your base and like you can assign villagers to build structures, so you can advance, like have more things available, and you'll advance buildings by the more missions you play. So it's really rewarding, where it's like you're doing your base management, you go out to the levels, and then on the levels is the cycle of like look for stuff, research, get villagers, and then attack the demons. And it's just like, this is cool. It also feels cool just having, like, this isn't Onimusha, but it's the closest thing to a new Onimusha game we've had in 18 years. So it's like, this is pretty close to it, where it's that same. It's not like the Edo period. I don't know. It's traditional samurai crap. It's awesome.
Sorry to all of our Japanese historians listening right now.
Yeah. Look, I know anything 80s and beyond. I don't know anything whatever. But I did find out there's a yokai museum somewhere in Japan that I want to go to now.
Nice.
Oh wow, that sounds
So
awesome.
Are the battles as big as that? When you say Onimusha, then I go, oh, does that mean the battles are really big? Is there a lot going on when it all kicks off, or?
It's like, I feel like most there's maybe like 20 monsters on at a time.
Okay.
Like they really push it out in waves, and if you get overwhelmed by that, you're screwed. Like,
okay.
But it's not too punishing, because if you die, you recharge, but then your villagers are
exposed.
They don't have your guidance, so you can't heal them. So like, but it's that same tension as Resident Evil, where I feel like Resident Evil, the modern ones, like the remakes, will dangle that tension, but you're always above. Your head's always above water, but you'll get sweaty, and it's like, oh crap. So it's good, and I think I'm maybe 4 hours into it, so I want to see how further it goes. And there are boss battles, and the boss battles are intense, but it's the same thing. You can look for rations and heal yourself and things like that. And I always love when you can grind in games, so it's been satisfying to like go back to older levels, crush the objectives. Every time you beat an area, you unlock more and more classes. So I just unlocked like a sumo fighter who is a tank,
cool.
and he costs the most like currency to hire, but it's like you get the sumo guy just pummeling people, and it's like it's just, I don't know, it's fun, it's creative.
The enemies look absolutely insane as well.
Yes,
like I've never seen shit like this. Like this is very upsetting, weird Japanese body horror. Craziness. Not to be a grammar Nazi, but I've never heard anyone pronounce it rations before. Is that
rations? Rations? No, I don't know. Look, I learned how to read this stuff during Metal Gear Solid when I was by myself. No, I've never heard it out in the wild.
I called genre Janier until for like
that's
years.
My fucking favorite one.
Rations.
There are so many words that I mispronounced for so many years. To me, because this is my experience, it always indicates to me that someone is just like like reads a lot or has like does a lot of their learning and studying in like isolation on text and stuff, because there were a million words that I saw in books and was like, I don't know, I like tapestry or something where it's like a word that nobody says in everyday life and you read it in a book, you're like, tapestry.
I say buffet because that's how my dad said it. And so is it buffet? I don't know, but I say
buffet sounds fancier.
Buffet's,
I say buffet.
Nice.
Yeah, buffet. But that's what my dad said it. So it's like I'm carrying on his legacy.
Buffet.
So
I like it.
But yeah, Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. Again, came out of nowhere. It's totally huge surprise. I mean, Capcom's been unstoppable the last few years. So here's another amazing game. Yeah.
Would you pay $50 for it?
Personally speaking, 40. 40 is the perfect price point for this. So 50 is a little okay. Whoa. But 40, perfect.
50 is it's a bit of a no man's land price as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's kind of like, it's not like 60, sure, but like it's not 40. It's
It's like that middle sizing at a restaurant when like you could get the medium drink, but it's 20 cents more for the full size. It's like $50 for a game is fine, but if I just spent 10 more, I could get like a AAA big, I know what I'm getting experience kind of thing. You know, I don't prescribe to that myself. You know, I'll buy whatever it costs, I'll play it. But I get why people maybe see it that way for sure.
Yeah, it has the feeling of maybe a Steam sale might help it out maybe a bit. I don't know.
Or Game Pass.
This feels like it would be the perfect Steam Deck game because every mission is maybe 15 minutes most.
Oh, cool.
So it's been the perfect thing to cycle. The one thing to note, and just in case, I don't think there's an auto save, so you have to go back to the base and go into a tent and save. So but again, it feels like a PS2 game. But
it's a good thing it's got better, less crashes than Fallout London.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way. I need that auto save, quick save button right there.
And the last little note is like the music stands out to me when you're back at your home base. It plays this beautiful, tranquil like piano music, and it's like it's so just whatever that piano track is so like leagues above any video game music. I mean, it's just ambience, but it's like. I mean, I'm sure Jeremy knows, there's a whole movement of like very chill Japanese ambient sound. Like I have all these random music in my Apple Music library, but like there's some piano track that plays when you're doing your base building. It's very like,
you're digging it.
It's so peaceful. And it's like, oh, this is
nice.
Oh, but even like Monster Hunter has really good like ambient, like home base music. So I think it has some of that element too. But yeah, Kunitsu-Gami, very, very surprised.
I wanted to mention one thing, Frank. You've done a really, really good job explaining this game. I played the demo for it, and like you have me more excited for it than the demo did. Like the demo's great, but I was like, I'll wait for this to be on sale. But now that I know it's on Game Pass and it sounds like it develops out a lot more, that's really exciting. The one thing you didn't mention that I think is really funny is the like pause screen for the game or wherever you go to like upgrade your abilities is a screen where it's just the princess that you're protecting sitting at a table, and like you can give her gifts, and one of the first gifts you unlock at the demo is a piece of cake. And when you give her the piece of cake, it's not like she's like there's a menu and you give it to her and there's like a ooh with like a sound. No. The cake is in front of her, and you could watch her eat the cake for like 2 minutes straight.
Wow.
It's so unnecessary. I thought you would, of anyone who was going to mention that, I thought it would be Frank.
I keep saying that you unlock sweets, but I haven't interacted with it. So I have like 3 different sweets. So now I got to go in the tent and
you got to go
her.
feed her. Yeah.
But that's what's nice is she invites you into her chambers, and that's when you upgrade stuff and whatever. But who knows if you feed her cake? I don't know. But it's cool. So you got to protect the princess at all costs.
That's amazing. Wow. Cake. Yeah. Sweet. What type of sweets are they? Like
it's like Japanese snacks.
Like little.
Yeah.
I wonder what you can. What's like, a hot dog or like a soup or like what would be like the weirdest like thing to watch somebody eat, like
a quartered watermelon,
wings.
Like a big slice of watermelon.
Wings.
Yeah. Just like
wings is good.
Her face is all covered in like buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
Wings, but it's from one of those weird monsters with the big wings.
Yokai wings.
Like a big wing.
Yeah.
There you go. Available on where games are. Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. Very interesting name as well they've gone for. Go check it out. Conscript, Jeremy, this is the last game we have, I think, on the list
snap.
here. So this, obviously, we talked about this back at Next Fest when the demo was out. The demo is still available, but so is the full game now for $20. It just came out last week. How have you been enjoying? How would you explain this weird game?
Okay, so Conscript is a survival horror game. In terms of visual style, angle, like presentation, it reminds me a lot of Signalis, kind of that like locked like straight on kind of Metal Gear Solid looking angle, heavily pixelated. But we kind of talked about this during the Steam Next Fest stuff, so I'm going to reiterate just the explanation of the game for a second. It is a World War I survival horror game. So this takes place at the Battle of Verdun, one of the longest and most devastating battles of World War I. And the interesting thing about this game is that it's like, most survival horror games is like you're in the village and then they're like, oh no, there's like something fucked up. There's like paranormal stuff. There's zombies. There's monsters. The monsters in this are just German soldiers. And which is it sounds like a funny twist, but the amount of oppressive horror ambiance that this game achieves, like it feels like the people that you're fighting are monsters,
right?
If that makes sense. Like they're just soldiers. No one's head has burst into tentacles or anything, and no one's like dies and then comes back to life. They're just people. But it's like it has that sense of otherization that I imagine is a huge element of. I mean, I've never been to war, but I dabbled, but I imagine that a huge part of the experience of war is that in order to get people to go kill other people, you have to convince them that those other people are basically like non-human monsters, right? Yeah. Like no sane person wants to go kill a person, like unless you think every soldier is like a Jeffrey Dahmer,
right?
Which is probably not the case statistically. You have to like convince them that it's like these are monsters. They're like human monsters. And so there is an interesting way in which this game, by putting you in the position of a survival horror game about war, you're like, I see a guy and he's like yelling in German, and I'm like, I gotta kill this guy.
Right.
And in fact, there was one moment where there was a dude laying on the ground and there was dim lighting, and I couldn't tell which side he was on, because like the French uniforms are kind of like pale blue and the German uniforms are kind of a pale gray, and it was like dim, so I'm like squinting at the screen. I'm like, should I kill this guy? Like, should I leave him? And he's just like laying there moaning, and he goes, "Hilf mir!" And I was like, oh, that's me speaking German. Get his ass.
Don't sound like French to me, boy.
This is exactly how it happens at Gamescom. It's the same thing. Everyone's just like, get him, get his ass.
So I beat him to death with a shovel. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Waste the bullet.
But yeah, it feels so much like a survival horror game, and the fact that there's nothing paranormal happening is just it's a testament to the amount of atmosphere that they've managed to wring out of this, and that's kind of the brilliant thing about it, is that I mean, what like earthly experience could be more horrifying than going to war, getting mustard gassed, especially World War I with like the trenches, the artillery, the like mustard gas. It's like one of the most horrible ways to die, and people are just like losing their shit. You'll like find a guy who's shell shocked and he's just like standing there losing his shit, and you're like, this is horror. You know what I mean? Like war is horror.
And games are so often not like World War games are so often not that. They're like bombastic and not scary, and
like Homelander shows up, Nicki Minaj.
There's usually typically war is very romanticized, just because it's like, I don't know, even like Saving Private Ryan, I feel like was one of those movies where they were like, wow, it really shows how fucked up war is. But even that was still very cool. It was still cool. Like it was still, you're like, whoa, that's fucked up, but it's pretty sick.
It just shows Band of Brothers is the same thing.
But you compare them to what came before, and it's like, watch a World War II movie from the 1960s, and it's like, all right, chaps, let's go get those damn Nazis. They're not going to invade Blighty on my watch. You know,
if you don't want to get them, you're a commie, aren't you? You don't support us.
It's like, it's a very different. Whereas like Saving Private Ryan was just compared to what had come before it. But you're right, it is still, you sort of. At least the only fear in those movies was who wasn't going to make it till the end, and I think that's what Band of Brothers did really well. Was like just so many of the people you knew in those first two episodes were gone by the end of the fourth one. But yeah, it's not fear. It's not individual fear like you feel like. I guess in this game it sounds like, where you're just like terror, where death is around every corner, and it's not just a quick save to come back.
Yeah. That actually brings up a great point, which is that this uses a limited consumable item for saves like old Resident Evil games. Mm-hmm. So there are ink pellets that you use.
Oh my god, they're ink pellets.
Really? Yeah, it's literally
ink pellets. And the save room has a dude. There's like a blue light in there, and there's a guy who's like the trader. So you find cigarettes, and those are like the currency that you use to trade. like war and prison. Right. And yeah, so it's an absurd amount of like the feel of a Resident. It feels like a Resident Evil game, and that's exactly what I want out of a survival horror game. Is if it doesn't feel like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, it better be doing something damn fucking original. And this is like both doing something very original and also just feels like a straight up Resident Evil game. So it's great. I really really like it a lot.
Excellent.
Nice.
Conscript available on Steam for $20. Go check out the demo if you're sitting on the fence about it. They also have something called the Trench Raider Pack, which they have DLC. Jeremy, you've popped your DLC bubble. You're gonna pick up the Trench Raider pack for $5.
What does it come with?
This DLC
like
comes
a t-shirt.
with. It looks like it's cosmetic shit. So
I'm good. I'm good
hell
off
yeah!
that.
Dress
Sure?
up your soldier. Prepare him for World War One.
Battle
you can
through
dress
the
up.
trenches with 3 additional uniforms to choose from, including Elite Trench Raider, Pilot, and English Tommy.
Just Tommy. It doesn't even. It's just Tommy. Dude.
Oh my god!
Iconic Tommy from Conscript. We could dress up as him.
English
Yeah,
Tommy.
as much as I love Tommy, I think I'm good off that.
Tommy is a shorthand for a person in war, I think, in England.
Oh, is that
Is it?
Oh, it's a term.
Tommy
Okay.
and Jerry.
Just a guy named Tommy. You just dress up
Tom
as
and
him.
Wait,
Jerry.
I was gonna say, is Tommy and
Oh.
Jerry the origin of the name of Tom and Jerry?
Are
the
we having a
cartoon?
Phoenix Down moment here?
Yeah,
I actually don't know if that's the case, but yeah.
Oh,
Look
okay.
it up.
It might be. We might have just stumbled into a.
Is it like those classic Disney cartoons where it was actually propaganda, but the kids were like, "Ooh, yeah, Donald Duck is a Nazi. That's cute."
Jeremy's
I'll
looking
report
it
back
up.
on
Yeah,
this.
okay, report back.
We'll report back on this by the end of the episode if I can
Tommy
find
and
anything.
Jerry. That's all the games we played this week. Fallout London, A Ranger, PsychOdyssey, Conscript, Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. We've also been given some dispatches from the wilds of both email and Discord. Folks, don't email my email address with questions. I don't know why this happened this week. I don't know where you got my email address from. But head them over to podcast@noclip.video and Frank will be able to pull them up. Frank, who we got this week?
Yeah, we had a lot, and as always, email podcast@noclip.video or write in the Discord. We actually had so much this week. I'll save some for next week also, but keep sending stuff in. We had a comment from Brad W. In your latest episode, you asked what was the worst wedding gift you had given was. This made me remember the only wedding I've been to as an adult. It was a friend from work, so there were a fair amount of fellow coworkers there. I decided last minute I was going to go, so I picked up a card on the way. When I got there, I realized I didn't have any cash on me. Another coworker arrived at the same time as me. He didn't get a card or a gift, but had cash on hand, so he put $20 in the card and put his name on the card as well. I often wonder how confused they were when the card said from Brad and Will.
Beautiful. $20 from Brad and Will. That's a good. I feel like that's more interesting than getting the more expensive but probably a lot more boring table covers or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever shit you had on your registry.
Yeah, you could spend that $20 on anything.
could.
That makes me want to get if I ever go to a wedding in the near future, get like a like an Outback Steakhouse gift card. Just slap it in there. So, but like $80, $100.
Give them
Generous
$80,
gift
but do it in $2 notes.
Oh
Just
God.
a stack of cards like this thick.
So it seems like you've given them like an insane amount of money, but it's all because those $2 they'll remember you every time they use those $2.
That's true. They'll remember you, but not
They'll
fondly.
be pissed. They'll be like, "This guy, man."
Do people not like $2? I like the $2 note. Is it
There's a
weird?
lot of places.
No,
that
but
don't
I'm
take
I'm
cash,
thinking of
right?
$2 Outback Steakhouse gift cards.
Oh,
each
no.
one
Oh,
loaded
That's
with $2.
so much worse.
Because
hellish.
then every time they go to Outback Steakhouse, they have to explain to the waiter. why they have
That I think is
40 of them.
almost as bad, if not worse, than if you gave them $20 in pennies and they try to pay with
Yeah.
that. Trying to do all those gift cards in a row at an Outback Steakhouse would be like, I think they would kick you out.
Straight in
even
the
if you
trash.
ate. Yeah, absolutely. They're like, who
Straight in
even
the trash.
cares? It's not worth it.
Facebook Marketplace with that shit.
Yep.
You could make it rain though. After you buy a bloomin' onion and you just throw a handful of cards at the waiter.
You can make it rain with coins.
That's true, but it's
more
dangerous.
accurate. Yeah. It's like sleet. It's like hail, I guess.
Yeah.
Next email's from Anonymous, Frank.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit. The
they-
hacker group, they found us.
They got it. How do you feel about the current trend of what I call click hate in games media?
What?
I'm a designer on a recent AAA game that got absolutely shat on from a great hype before it was even released.
Oh no.
I'm not saying it was a perfect game. It definitely has its issues, and I can also understand it wasn't what people were expecting from us, but it definitely wasn't as bad as YouTubers and even global games media made out. I feel this trend is exacerbating the lack of studios taking risks to make games out of their wheelhouse or experimenting with interesting ideas, which I also think causes some of the layoffs and studio closures. The positivity in the indie community should be the norm for all games.
This is an interesting area of conversation, I feel like. What do you guys think? The immediate reaction you can have is, well, you're having a defensive response to a piece of art that you made that got criticized. But,
That is part of it.
But there definitely is. I've said it before about Bethesda stuff and lots of other studios where if you're a big AAA studio, suddenly you're a corporation. But if you're an indie studio, then suddenly you're like a mom and pop, wholesome little thing. And those two things, there's some truth to them, of course, but it's an oversimplification, perhaps. What do you guys think? I don't want to immediately go off on one here.
Yeah, I think it's hard to, without context of, you have to talk very kind of neutrally about this without the context of the game, because like it could be an awesome game that doesn't deserve the criticism. It could be an underwhelming game that does deserve the criticism. It could be a game that was criticized for monetization practices that were unnecessary and bloated and whatever. But just kind of in the abstract, I think that part of the problem is the way that content algorithms cater to intense emotions, and so there are successful niche creators who put out video essays that are like, this game is more interesting than you might think, and whatever, 100,000 views. But then there are people who are like, this game fucking sucks, and it's like 40 million views. I just think that it's like a lot of the bigger content creators in games and streamers who talk about games and stuff, their breakout videos, the things that go viral and the things that get them these massive followings, oftentimes, unfortunately, are very polarized, very intense, and very binary expressions of game good, game bad, because it's an easy thing when you get home from work and you're exhausted and you see this game sucks and here's why. It's like that's such a digestible take that it's like, yeah, I could eat a sandwich and listen to that for 5 minutes.
It feeds the psychology. Plus, I think like part of it is games media. When I see games media, I think websites. I think like Kotaku. I think IGN.
Which they were originally saying, I think, because this last line says definitely wasn't as bad as YouTubers and even global games media made out. So they are also saying it was not just YouTubers. It was like they feel like they were criticized by established games press, I guess.
And in that case, I think there is like, it's so strange because on the one hand, like you see that stuff, and I'm like you said, Danny, I'm sure if you're the person whose work is being attacked or being criticized, it's easy to be, or not easy, but like, it's your immediate response to be like, hey, come on, we tried our best, or you don't know the circumstances under which it was made, which I think is important, right? To know that stuff and consider that stuff. But also like, I do look at it from the journalist perspective. I'm sure there are a lot of writers who don't want to necessarily make articles like that. But what gets you money? And then it's like morals and ethics and whatever. You can dig into that all you want. I don't think it's a current trend either of click hate. I think this stuff's been happening since I was a kid and reading games news, but it has gotten worse and worse, I think, for a lot of obvious reasons, monetary ones being, I think, the most blatant for me.
It's interesting. There's so little games coverage from established,
sure, but just in general it's become more frequent.
From where are you saying that? If it's
just in general, YouTubers, but also like there's a good handful. Actually, the smaller blogs I tend to see are very positive. They just don't talk about AAA games much.
Yeah,
but that's my own thing. So
yeah, like I think there's a lot like these days. I mean, there's no money in games media, so like, and there's almost no real what's the word it's right there into my tongue. Motivation, I guess, or financial motivation to be writing that. Like YouTubers have a direct pipeline of money that comes in based on the amount of views they have. If you're a staff writer at Kotaku, like you probably want to be hitting a certain amount of impression numbers, but the motivation is not there in the same way to like generate. Like you have to report to an editor. There is a voice that the outlet has. There are so few people doing that work, and there's so few outlets these days in particular that I feel, and there is so little, like, to write a news article about something that happened will take you, you know what I mean? If you're an Eddie McCoo, Jeremy, right, at GameSpot, right, who's able to crank out like a bunch of those every single day, that's one thing. To write a like thought piece on a game takes way too much fucking time. You don't have the time to be doing that. In the same way that reviews are the exact same thing. Like, there are less reviews now than there ever were. It feels like, at least. It's certainly written reviews. There's more video reviews and stuff. Just because there's way less money in games media. There's way less outlets. There's like hardly any outlets anymore. You can count them on one hand. The ones that are around is IGN, GameSpot, Eurogamer, Kotaku, Polygon. Is that it? Like, everyone else is basically doing, you know, they're either a small startup or they're padding a resume. They're not making any money. You know what I mean? The outlets aren't, or the people aren't. So I've always, whenever, before I worked in games media, and definitely since working in there, whenever I've seen people be critical of like a games media publication, it's more often than not been because they read one thing they disagreed with. It's not been a truth about the voice of that outlet. You know, Kotaku puts themselves into this conversation a lot, and you know that's because they publish like 30 articles a day or whatever, because they have to. And I'm not a Kotaku reader. I'm not a fan of their work necessarily now or in the past. It's not the type of stuff that I give a shit about, and the voice isn't for me. But yeah, I feel like this type of thing exists a lot more on YouTube, where there is a direct financial incentive to do it. The one that I always point to, and I know I sound like a bit of a broken clock, is I think SkillUp had a massive amount of subscribers back when he was basically doing a lot of videos complaining about Fallout 76. And I like SkillUp, and I think a lot of the work that he's done since has been cool. But like, you can look at the metrics. I remember looking at it in real time going, that's a financial incentive right there. Yeah. And you acknowledge it or don't, but like, when people are interested in how you're dunking on something, and you could even say it, you could say it about people, you know, like the Nakey Jakey Red Dead one, you could even say it about. But the difference, you know, maybe not the difference, but I think maybe almost in both cases they had good arguments for it. Like, a lot of the criticisms that SkillUp had about 76 were completely warranted and were well written and thought out. And similarly, Nakey Jakey's Red Dead video, I've heard game devs talk to me about how they love watching that video because it reminds them about certain game dev stuff. None of that negates the fact that they spent their time and energy talking about those things and not something else. Like, that's the incentive. So I think when games are bad and are unpopular, especially when Jeremy was saying about like the monetization stuff, I think that's when everyone aligns, where somebody wants to hear about the game that they don't like, or they want, like, same with news headlines, where they want to have their biases confirmed or whatever. Whether or not the person writing is making it up or not, I don't think that's the case. I don't think people tend to do that very often. I think they feel similarly about something, and they feel emboldened and passionate about it because the audience does too. But it sort of creates these clusters around bad games where you just have, because of the wheels of capital and because of how advertising works, you just have more people talking about the bad thing than you have people talking about some random good thing. It's just like something about just how people consume stuff online and in print, I guess, as well. So
I was just going to add on that I think that part of what you're saying is also that, in a weird way, since the advent of YouTube and the growth of social media as this like primary social reality, it has become this thing where a lot of news stories about the reception to games are sort of a reflexive response to people. Like, you know, you'll see people on social media talking about a game is bad. You'll see YouTubers talking about a game is bad. And then you'll see like a Kotaku article being like, this is how people are responding. And so in a weird way, the primary dimension when I was growing up of like reporting on games was games media, and then people would have sort of their private response in lesser, you know, in the corridors of NeoGAF or whatever. And now the polarity has reversed, and it's like people on Twitter are freaking out about a thing, and YouTubers are talking about it, and Twitch streamers in a more like immediate, visceral, and less polished way. And then the more kind of like restrained news media is just responding to that and reporting on that reality.
Yeah, 100%. Like, how many articles have you read in the past year that talk about the Steam numbers of something dropping, or the reviews on Steam go trending in a certain direction. You know what I mean? And then that creates the story around the game. I also think it's true that AAA games, people are fucking sick of them being the same.
Yeah.
I think the AAA space for, like, I guess Anonymous here works inside of a studio, and they said that they feel this trend is exacerbating the lack of studios taking risks to make games out of their wheelhouse. I hope
that's not happening, man.
I don't necessarily. I don't work in a AAA game studio, so who the fuck am I? But from visiting studios and talking to people who work at studios, I don't think that's the reason why that's happening.
Yeah.
Especially not now when we're in this sort of weird little financial moment in games. It's not stopping people from doing it when they go indie. So I don't know why, when it's less of a personal risk, it would be more risky within an org. I think the cost of making AAA games is what's doing that, and the fear of putting everything, like the risk that's involved in doing something new, I think has a lot more to do with that. But yeah, I don't know. I feel for people who work on a game that they spend 5 years on, and then people either don't give a shit about it, or it has some monetization thing in it that they just immediately write it off, or it's based on an IP that they're not interested in, or whatever it is. And it's happening in indie stuff now. Did you see all the reports of Jonathan Blow talking about how badly the Braid Collector's Edition apparently sold?
Oh, how it
like
sold
dog
like
shit?
dog shit. That's the quote. That's not like a.
Well, it's an interesting quote because it's something he said on a Twitch stream, which they then took out of context in headlines and said it sold like dog shit. It's like within the broader sentence.
Yeah.
That's a good example of reporting that sort of, Reddit post based on video based article based on Reddit post based on video based on Twitch stream. You know what I mean? But it's, it's tough for everyone out there at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
People feel ways about publications. We all do, right? So
It's true.
next email, Frank from James.
Yeah, this is from James Med. They said, for Frank's mission, I'm putting forward for your consideration Tondemo Crisis, also known as Incredible Crisis. This game is pretty wild and a worthy addition to Frank's list of games set in Tokyo. So I completely forgot about this game. This game, if people here played it or heard of it, Incredible Crisis is a PS1 game that is one of the craziest and funniest games ever made. I played it once, like during quarantine, and I streamed it, and it was like, I feel like you can beat the game in like 3 hours, but the premise is it's like one insane day for a family. So it's like you play a salary man, and like you're being chased by like a boulder, and you're falling down an elevator shaft, and you have to do, it's just constant mini games and chaos. It's kind of the same vibe as like Parappa, and randomly throughout the game, I think at one point you play as like one of the kids. You have to take a math test. You have to go grocery shopping as the mom. Like it's just like it's almost like WarioWare micro mini games, except it tells like a story in the day of a life of this family, and it's just like so much insanity happens, and it's got like Tokyo Ska Paradise does like the soundtrack. It is just like one of the most incredible games ever made. And there's like scenes where you're dancing, and I think the first mission is like you're dancing in an office, and then you get the elevator, and the elevator falls down and crashes. But yeah, I played it forever ago, and I just wanted to echo, it is such an amazing game. I don't think they've ever I don't think it's on PlayStation Store currently. There's no remaster of it, but it's a game that everyone should like seek out, play, emulate, do whatever you can. But Incredible Crisis is awesome.
Also,
sorry,
fantastic box art.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
It's so good. Incredible Crisis, I played a long time ago. I've never played the entire thing, but it came back on my radar when I played Moon, because the lead designer on Incredible Crisis was Kenichi Nishi, who was the guy behind Moon.
Oh wow,
very cool. Yeah, that I've never heard, or I wonder, was this ever released in Europe? Maybe that's why I've never seen this. It did, yeah, it did come out in Europe.
It's really fun.
November 24th. Maybe it was limited. Maybe it did a different box art, because I've definitely never seen that box art. That box art is amazing. Yeah. Okay. Anything else to say about Incredible Crisis?
No, but on the tear of Jeremy talking about Kenichi Nishi, he also did Chibi Robo, which is a game I've never played, but I feel like I would.
Is so good.
Oh, yeah.
I should play that soon.
Yeah, I would love, dude. If you stream that, I would love to watch you play that game. It's really. I've never played the entire thing of Chibi Robo. It's another one of those games that I kind of dabbled in and didn't see through to the end, but it's really fun and good. It's like I love. I feel like it's an underutilized thing in games where you're like a tiny being in the normal world. So like you're in like you're like a cleaning robot in a family's household, but it is cool to be in like a very normal domestic space that's just like kitchens and bathrooms and stuff.
Yeah.
But you're like little tiny the borrowers walking around, and these chairs are like big skyscrapers above you. It's very fun.
Tinykin.
The EU, yeah, Tinykin, good shout. The EU box I've just posted in our studio chat here is not nearly anywhere near as good. It's very sort of on the nose. Thanks, James. Anyone else got any Japanese-based games podcast at noclip.video for your Tokyo-based games for Frank to complete his important mission, his impossible mission. Last email here from RP. It looks like.
Yeah, they said, just finished this week's pod, and I wanted to send a special shout out to Danny for recommending Bill Murray. Definitely the best new thing I got to listen to in a long time. I hope I can return the favor by recommending someone I do know, but hopefully you don't yet. Jacob Zatecki, whose music sounds very similar to Bill Murray, actually. Less the vocals for the most part, but the same heavy, badass sounding, math rocky DJ Entish riffs and top-notch production quality. Epic soundtrack for walks alone at night or cinematic lawn mowing. Your choice. Would be fun if you considered keeping this weekly recommendation section at the end on a non-mandatory level for your current reads, movies, art, or any random media that you guys are into at the moment, on top of Penguin Gohan. Keep up the great work and keep being you. Cheers from Hungary.
I've never heard of Jakob Yitzeki or whatever. Yitzeki. Polish names are always fucking a minefield of that. No, that's actually not how you pronounce it. So who knows how you pronounce that? But I will check them out. Anyone have any other recommendations then, based on RP's recommendation? Anyone watch any movies this week? Anyone watch any?
I got a movie recommendation.
What you got?
I watched a couple weeks ago Yasujiro Ozu's Floating Weeds. This is a remake of a silent film that he made in like the 30s, and I think the remake was either 50s or early 60s. Unbelievably beautiful, incredible film. One of my favorites from Ozu, and that's saying a lot because a lot of his movies are in my top 20 movies of all time. It's like a traveling kabuki theater group that come into this very, very small town that's kind of like still living in a sort of bygone era of Japanese history, and just this very beautiful kind of interpersonal drama that goes on there. But the thing that's very striking about it is that Ozu made most of his films he made a big chunk of them during the silent era and made most of his films during the black and white era. So when he finally gets access to color at the end of his career, it's like, you'll have this very drab kind of, it's like an old-timey Japanese city. Everything is kind of like wood and sand and stone. And then there's a scene where this woman is coming into the situation to basically like stir up shit because she's pissed. She comes in out of the rain with this bright red umbrella. And it's like this splash of color and everything is so muted. And so anytime you see like the color red is like a motif in this movie. So anytime you see a little splash of color, it's like shit's about to go down. Like something's happening.
That's
so
cool. What's it called?
I almost said Incredible Crisis. It's called Floating Weeds. It's Yasujiro Ozu's Incredible Crisis for the PlayStation 1.
Oh my god.
Floating Weeds, yeah, it's fantastic. I think the whole thing's on YouTube as well.
Hell yeah. Floating Weeds. Nice one. I'm going to bookmark that one. The only thing I've interested, like I watched Furiosa this week and enjoyed it, but it's like a very, Furiosa. Yeah, I'm not going to recommend one of the biggest movies that came out in the box office this year. For the Formula One podcast I do, Shift F1, we just recently did a Patreon exclusive parter where we watched a anime series called Overtake, which is based on Japanese Formula 4, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best anime of what, there's a whole like trend of like doing the sports anime, you know what I mean? There's like the baseball anime, soccer anime, all that sort of stuff. Obviously there's Initial D, which is like a classic motorsports anime, really big manga as well, of course, and the series is very good. But Overtake's great. It's like it like the thing that it gets into, I think, the most that I'm most impressed by is that it's very good at explaining like how open wheel racing works and why it's interesting, like, you know, how grip works and, you know, what the deal is with tires and why teams are expensive and why cheap teams have to do this and rich teams have to do this. And then there's also a parallel story, which I won't get into details of, but there's a trauma that the main character, who's a photographer, has gone through, which works as sort of like it's like a cultural trauma in Japan. It's not Godzilla related. It's not nuclear. It's another type of thing. That's super interesting and works as a proxy for, I think at least for the fear that drivers have when they have to get into the car after they've had an accident. So it was, I was super impressed by it. There's only one season. It came out last November, I think. 12 episodes long. It's on Crunchyroll. Overtake with an exclamation point after it. It's very, very good. And else? Yeah,
I guess I one random note is after Jeremy recommended, what is it called? Hamaite?
Oh, Heda Uma.
Heda Uma. I looked at my library and they did have a Heda Uma book, Tokyo Zombie by Yusaku Hanakuma. I just picked this up like 2 hours ago. But yeah, the art looks very like basic and crude and just like,
oh, that's awesome.
so
that's
yeah,
great.
I mean, like, it's just, I don't know. I can't wait to read whatever the hell.
Is that a cat? What the fuck is that?
Yeah. So I can't wait to read this. But so, yeah, someone else recommended this. And I was like, okay, great. So I'll check this out. But then on my end, it's one of the biggest anime of like the last few years. But I started reading and watching Spy Family.
Oh, nice.
Which is tremendous. It's like, and that I think is also on Crunchyroll. It's so, again, like this was the thing everyone was cosplaying as like a year ago. But Spy Family, it's very, very good. It's about there's a spy who needs to infiltrate an academy because one of the students, their father is a diplomat. It's very important that he must take this person out. But the only way he can get into the academy is he needs to have a family. So he adopts a girl to just have a sham marriage to get this kid in. But the kid can read minds. Oh no, a kid can read the mind? Her dad's a spy. She's going to leak the secrets. So it's just very like, just great tension and great characters and silly. And I found out they just released a video game last month.
Oh.
There's a Spy Family video game. So my plan is read it all and then play this game and see how it is. But it's really good. And the animation quality, like anime these days, there's so much production value behind it, but it's like lots of great action, espionage, very like Metal Gear, very Lupin, very silly, very cute. But yeah, Spy Family. Again, it's one of the biggest contemporary anime, but I just got into it and I'm like, oh my God, Spy Family is actually like, it's really great. So,
yeah, the game came out last month. It looks really good. It looks like the graphics look really slick. I'm super surprised.
Yeah, I mean, like the art style of Spy Family itself is good. The game itself just looks like a mini game collection, so I'm not going to rush out to buy it.
For $50.
Although reading the Steam reviews of Spy Family, the reviews are all very positive, but all the reviews, I saw one that was like 60 hours played. I wish I had a family in real life.
Oh no.
All the reviews like, this game is great. You can dress up in many different costumes. So it's like, it's up my alley. But
also $44 worth of if you were excited by the different Tommy things available in your Verdun game, how about deluxe outing pack, thrilling outfit pack, and excited outfit pack, all available for between $12 and $20 each. So, that's quite a lot of DLC.
Yeah.
Jesse, do you have anything else to throw on the pile, the recommendation pile?
I wish I had more free time to do anything the last couple of weeks. I don't know. I recommend Getting married. It's pretty lit. Signing paperwork for gutters and financing it. I recommend trying that out. Yeah.
Good stuff. Get your gutters clean, folks. It's guess it's not the right time of year for that. I remember that in Maryland when the fucking leaves started falling. It was just, I was not prepared for. Oh, all the leaves fall, not just like some.
And all on my house, not anywhere else. Why is it? Fuck.
Who knew that you had to Jesus Christ? That was intense. It was deciduous. Do you live in a deciduous part of the world? Is there lots of trees? Like in wintertime when it's all snowy, are all the trees fucking just like little skeletons?
Normally, but I live right in like this little pocket of the suburbs that we're in where there's no trees directly over our house. So the new gutters should last forever until they don't. But everywhere else it's Leaf City. That's the best part that's my favorite season, really, is when the leaves start changing and they start falling around and you get to walk through it. It's beautiful. It's do you miss that being in California, like that part of it?
No. Not the Maryland version of it where it was like Jesus fucking Christ, I had to, like, the amount of leaf collecting I had to do on my own in Maryland around our, because we lived in the woods, like we were surrounded by trees on all sides. So when they came, and then if you didn't, it would like destroy the grass and the flower beds and everything. So you're constantly just like out there with the fucking trying to get all these leaves, and then you can't throw them away because there's too many of them. So you just make a big leaf pile, and then a bunch of raccoons.
So it wasn't even pretty for you.
It
it was just annoying. It was just
it was a lot
frustration.
of work. Yeah, I couldn't use the John Deere to drag. You know, we were renting that place and they gave us a John Deere to do the grass on it, but you couldn't do that because it would just fill up with leaves like instantly. Like you couldn't collect them that way either. So.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't. Seasons we kind of do get seasons out here, don't we, Jeremy? A bit.
As someone who grew up in New England, I would say that there are no seasons here at all. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna go back to New England this fall because it's been a while since I've been back in New England during the fall, and I need to go eat some. Have you guys ever eaten a cider donut?
Yes.
No.
Oh, cider
in
donuts
Boston?
are to die
Really?
for.
They're good.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty much exactly what you'd expect. They're an apple cider flavored donut. They're
What's the
unbelievable.
review, Jesse? I need an unbiased review on this
It depends on where you go. I'm sure the one I had was in a market, not Faneuil. It was some other random one that we stopped at before we got to the Italian part of Boston. But I'd say 7. I'd give it a 7. It was
you gotta
okay.
get them fresh. If you're getting, if
they were
in
fresh,
like
but they were okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take you to my spot next time you're in
There we
Boston.
go.
The problem is when you have maple or cinnamon or apple flavored things. I'm from Canada, man. All we have are
that's a
apples
good
and
point.
maple up here. I have my standards are far too high.
That's
Their
true.
water. They open the tap up and it just comes out.
That's right.
Comes out of it.
But do you guys know the thing that we do? I don't know if it's an Ontario thing specifically or if it's a Canadian thing broadly. But there's a thing that we do here with we during the wintertime, we take like field trips of kids out to these farms of trees and we just put little taps in maple trees and the sap will come out. We put it on these like sticks of snow. I don't know what it's called. And then the kids eat it like it's a little treat. So we get
I have also done that.
You've done that? Okay, so maybe
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like
yeah.
a Northeast
You
thing.
flavor the snow.
Yeah, we
with-
just eat the snow.
with
Yeah,
Like a little snow cone kind of.
yeah. Well, yeah, or like a strip of cold sap from a tree.
To me, it always
yeah, of
struck
course,
it
the
struck
sap
me
is
as
cold,
like
too.
a like something that like someone's grandfather would do. It'd be
Yes.
like you'd go visit your friend's grandpa and he'd be like, "Let's go out to the trees." And this is
Suck
what
on a tree.
this is what candy was when I was a kid
Yeah.
during the Depression.
Is it good? Does the sap taste good?
When you're a kid, anything with sugar is delicious.
That's
So
good.
Yeah,
point.
it's sweet. It's very like it doesn't taste like maple syrup. Maple syrup is very you like boil the sap down massively into a syrup. This is
like
like
concentrate.
maple. This is maple water.
yes,
Got
yeah.
like an earthy feel to it or whatever.
Yeah, it's vaguely sweet.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, go suck on some trees. I wasn't trying to be weird. I was just like, I'm enraptured, but it's just like when we started, I was like, he's making this shit up. He's doing this to confuse the dumbass European. But then Jeremy backed it up. So either you guys talked about this before, or I guess
Yeah, we
that's how
play
you
it-
get
We should
the
do
fuck
that
with
more.
everything.
We should start planning bits to confuse Danny.
We should just
Yeah, you
make
should,
up
yeah.
shit. Yeah, you
Make
can
up a
eat dirt.
steak. You know,
Yeah,
that
back in my
I
day, we
thought
used to
of.
just take dirt and you dig it up and eat it, and it was good. We just loved dirt.
Yeah,
Really? You eat
No,
dirt.
that's
You guys
that's
were
a
doing
lot.
You guys know
too,
about
right?
conkers? Whenever I talk to anyone about conkers,
Bad Fur Day?
No, not Bad Fur Day, but good
no.
point. Conkers is a sport where you get like a horse chestnut. You know, the little horse chestnut, like the
sorry.
or like an
An
oak
an
tree.
acorn?
What do you guys call them? An acorn? I guess it's an
Horse
acorn.
chestnut.
No, they're slightly
not.
different.
Horse nuts?
It's a bit different. It's
Oh,
from
and a
an oak tree,
schoolless
right?
hippocastinum.
That's the one.
Everyone.
A
knows
horse.
Oh, these
yeah, horse-
things. Just
yeah,
a
you get one
chestnut.
of those. Yeah, I guess it comes in like a spiky green thing.
Yeah, and then
you
yeah,
smash it
yeah,
open
the
and
squirrel
They
it
call them
comes-
smash it open.
Buckeyes in the States.
Oh, Buckeyes. Yeah.
Buckeyes.
I think ours are bigger. I think
Okay.
the European ones are bigger, maybe, and this maybe explains this. But we played a game called Conkers where you'd make a hole in it and put a shoestring through it and tie the bottom. So you would have one of these horse chestnut seeds on the end of a shoestring, basically. And then how it worked is you had 2 people. One of them would hold theirs like still, like hanging it there, and the other person would almost revert upside down, hold the conker, and have the string in the other hand, and try and hit the other conker with it. And you would take turns back and forth, and whoever like smashed the other one's conker won, basically.
Now I think
But
you're
people
making
would-
shit up.
Yeah, this doesn't.
I've
People would do shit like they would freeze them or they would cover them in varnish. You know what I mean? To make sure that they wouldn't smack.
Wow.
This sounds like I'm about to tell a similar childhood activity, and I just want to say, I want to preface this and say that both of these sound like we're 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
The things we're
like a
saying,
Great
this is like
Depression Beyblade or
we've
something.
become
That's what we should do
grandfathers
next.
in our 30s.
We should go around and tell the story that makes us sound the oldest.
Okay,
Because I will win.
when we were kids, there was a you guys know what crab apples? They're like the shitty apples that you can make food out of. They're edible, but they suck.
I think, is that what we call cooking apples? We have cooking apples in Ireland.
Maybe there are also varieties of apples that are like I have Newtown pippins in my backyard that need to age for months before you eat them.
Oh, whereas we would use a cooking apple like to make like a pie or so, like you'd boil it down.
Oh,
To
interesting.
have it. When my wife first came to Ireland, she had there's like apples you keep in the fruit bowl, and then you have a separate bowl for the cooking apples because like you don't eat the fucking cooking apples. And she was like being a nice guest and ate one of these nasty fucking apples and was like, "Wow, that was really nice. Never had an Irish apple." And we were like, "You're just being nice, right? That was disgusting. You're not supposed to eat those."
That's amazing. That's so good. So crab apples, we used to, as kids, it was like the summer equivalent of like a snowball fight, but they were like these hard little
I'm
apples.
gonna say it's not.
And so you would just like,
kids, man.
yeah, you would just like collect a bunch of crab apples, and you see Andrew up the street, and be like, "Hey, what's up, fucker?" And just like
Oh yes, this is a fun school time activity.
Peg each
you
other
guys
with
do.
apples.
How big are they?
they're smaller than normal apples.
Okay,
but,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, they're not
Just
they're,
easier to fucking aim, probably. Then you can probably like, whistle them at somebody's head.
Yeah, they're like little they're like musket balls. Yeah, you could fit about 5 or 6 of them in the palm of your hand, probably.
Okay, yeah, just fling them at people.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Would you ever like? Did the seasons ever overlap where you could like hide one in a snowball and use it like, where you fuck
No,
somebody up without them knowing?
I don't think that's a high level strat. I wasn't on that. I didn't tech into that.
That's pretty good.
That's awful.
Frank,
happened
what's
to
the oldest
Namen?
thing you remember?
I mean, yeah.
Throwing.
Like the one thing that actually like a real generational divide is just like having to go on the computer and like dial into an internet connection and have to sit through the whole like thing, as opposed to now my phone is just always on and I get updates, but having to like sit and so just pre-broadband internet. Oh my god!
Did your mom ever
centuries
tell you
ago.
like shit from the old country? Did she ever have some like?
Man, God, it's like I don't know. Unlocking the whole Russia brain thing is just like everything seems centuries old. It's nuts. Like even like talking about like, oh, I should do therapy. She's like, why you want to do that? Like, it's
just bury those thoughts.
yeah. So I don't know. And then like, I mean, that's the thing I miss, but also love about my dad is he was very old. So it's just like all of his vernacular and stuff that I'm trying to hold on to remember as much as possible. And now I adore. It's growing up, it's like, oh God, but now it's like. Honestly, I was watching Boardwalk Empire this week, and Boardwalk Empire, takes place during the 20s, but they're singing all these old drinking songs and stuff. And like my dad would sing the same music. It would just
funny.
He was just like he was very silly, but like so it's like the same music of that time my dad was like singing. And it's like, oh crap, that's awesome. So little pleasants like that. But my own generational touchstone is pre-broadband internet. I have such vivid memories sitting right here, logging on CompuServe, so then I could look up like game packs and cheat codes for Mortal Kombat 3 or
Amazing.
whatever.
Love it. Jesse, you got any? You're the youngest one of the crew here.
Yeah, logging on to Facebook. Oh, do you guys remember that on your computers? No, yeah. What's the old guy thing for me? I don't know. We grew up pretty poor,
I guess
so
the
there's gotta be something funny.
tapping the trees was pretty good actually. That might
Yeah,
be
that's pretty old, Manny. Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
think
is
there's
there-
anything older than that. Yeah.
weird little practices.
While you're thinking, I remember ordering games online very early, and like I remember ordering Imperium Galactica and standing on the corner with my brother like every day after school, hoping that the delivery guy showed up because we didn't have like the tracker for it. We didn't know when it was showing up, so we would just like put out lawn chairs and just be like, "Is that him? Is that car coming him?" And we would just do that for like until fucking Imperium Galactica came in the mail.
Who did you order it from?
I don't remember. It might have been
from
Amazon. It might have been like when Amazon was a bookstore and they started selling games, because Amazon has been around since the mid 90s, right?
There was this whole thing. I never did it, but like in the magazines when I was growing up, like the Amiga magazines and stuff, like I would have been too young, but they had that whole thing where you could do mail order games, right? They had like, it's like how Doom was done and stuff, right? They just put an ad and you'd basically send a check to like an address, and then they would mail you back a game at some stage. It just seems, I never did that, but that seems archaic. Like just gonna mail a check to someone.
It's your landlord.
It's a scam, right? Like
Yeah.
that's got it. They're gonna do some shit. The one I go back to is milkmen. You have like a milkman. So like we had milkmen, of course, in Ireland, but we also had the coal man. So we had a guy who would drive around with a truck full of coal because we had radiators in our house, but the main source of heat in our house we had a coal fire in the middle of the
God,
living
you really
room.
are 100.
Yeah, it's just Ireland, man. Just
this is just Irish.
It's just Ireland shit.
Yeah.
And like Ireland used to be like, if you go back to like the 70s in Ireland or the 50s in Ireland is like 100, 200 years ago in comparison to America or anywhere else in Western Europe. But yeah, we had a coal man. So we had a coal shed. So we had a separate shed next to the garage. It was basically just like a bunker that you would have. The coal guy would come and basically toss a bunch of bags in there. So if you went in there, it's just black top to bottom. It was like a small room, like, I don't know, 8 feet by 5 feet or something outside. And I would go out with a pail and a little trough and fill it up full of coal and bring it into the living room and toss it on the fire. And
That's
so
amazing.
the coal man would come around, ding dong, coal man, 2 bags, all right. Stick them in the coal shed. So that's some otherworldly shit, I feel like. They were all gas fires by the time, the millennium had happened. But yeah, it was a lot of coal fires.
I feel like coal man.
We had oil heating as well for a while.
I had oil heating in the house where I grew up as well. The house I grew up in was from the early 1800s. As far as old things in America go, New England is sort of the oldest. Everything in California is like it's an old building. It's from 1964, except for like the Old West, like ghost town shit. But the house I grew up in was a Sunday school in the 1800s.
Oh wow!
And so me and my brother were convinced it was haunted, and it was like fucking scary. So like my dad would go out of town or something, and the power would go out because the fucking wiring was bad, and you'd have to go around the back of the house into this like big scary door into the basement, and then the basement ran the entire length of the house, so it was like this big fucking Silent Hill 3
But
basement.
it wasn't like a finished basement. It was
No. It was like a root cellar is glamorizing it. So one time, me and my brother were my mom was babysitting us, and she had to like run to the corner market for something, and the power went out, and we were like, let's go turn the power on. Like, mom will be so proud of us. But it was so fucking scary, and it was like a thunderstorm. So we went out there with a machete, and my brother, so my brother was holding the flashlight, and I was holding a machete with 2 hands. And
Was
we're
this
like,
the same machete that you were holding when she went up to you that day when you guys were having a fight about fucking...
No, that was a steak knife.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I have
It's
a
all
lot.
right, go on.
I had a real armory of bladed weapons as a
sounds like
child.
it.
So we went into the basement in survival horror co-op fashion, and it was a real. He pointed the flashlight. I held the rear with the machete in case any fucking... I don't know what we were gonna use the machete on, but just like the idea that there was like a ghoul down there, maybe.
We used to break... I grew up across the road from a very big mental institute, like a psychiatric hospital, I guess you'd call it. But most of it was a St. Otteran's, it's called, in Waterford. It's really big. Anyone from the area would know it pretty well. But like, oh God, 80% of it was unused, right? Because it was just like it was a different time. So we used to just like break into that and like go explore an abandoned psychiatric hospital, which is like,
that's awesome.
Everything is fucking creepy in an abandoned psychiatric hospital. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all fucking what's the word? Environmental storytelling. It's the whole thing. It's just
the handprints on the wall dragged out. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but my dad, so both of my parents are educators. My dad was trained as a psychologist, and one of his early jobs was working at Danvers State Insane Asylum, which is like one of the biggest old-timey asylums on the East Coast. It's closed now. They tore it down and replaced it with fucking condos, which is like, who wants to like, I'm sure they don't mention that in the pitch for the fucking timeshare meetings, that they're like, yeah, it's built on the corpses of 1,000 insane asylum patients. But my dad worked there. There's a horror movie called Session 9 about this place.
Wow.
I've never actually seen it.
Have you seen it, Frank?
Yeah, forever ago.
So my dad worked at that asylum.
Wow.
And he worked with kids there. And my favorite story he ever told me is that it was his first week there. And, you know, they're like going through the training and they're like, this is how you do it. And they had like a air gapped, they had like an airlock to get into there was like a door that you'd lock behind you and then you'd unlock the door and go in. And one of the doors automatically locked. And the guy who was like showing him around forgot the key. So they got locked in there with the inmates. And so it's just like first week. And so they go to the window and it's like a 3rd-story window. It's like a huge, like old Victorian looking Baroque insane asylum. And so they go to the window and they're yelling out the window like, hey, we're locked in here. We're trapped in here. And then the people outside are like, yeah, sure you are, buddy. Like they sounded like they were crazy people yelling out the window.
So they were it's every movie you've watched about an asylum where you're like, who is the,
So they're trapped in there with the inmates yelling out the window for help, and the people out of the grounds are like, oh, we get this every day. There's always one.
God, that's awful.
It's so fucking funny.
Panic. Oh my God, that's really fucked up.
Yeah.
That's awful. Oh man. I'd apparently in years before when the asylum across the road from me was a bit more in use. A couple of the kids, I know one of my neighbors who was an older gentleman by the time I was talking to him, but when he was a kid, they used to go in there and they had like stuff you could play with, like they had like table tennis and other bits and bobs that were there for the inmates. And he said they used to go in, him and his mate would go in and play table tennis in one of those rooms, and the the patients, I should say, most of them didn't, play or give a shit or whatever. He said the worst thing was whenever anyone scored, you had to quickly grab the ball because on either side of the table they had these really long spittoons. So like, little fucking troughs where people spit into, and they were just full of spit.
Oh
so
my God.
The ball would bounce into the spittoon and then you had to like get the fucking ball out of this like nasty spit trough. It just sounds absolutely fucking grim.
Jesus Christ. We kind of like grew up in Silent Hill is what I'm gathering.
Yeah, right. I loved it because it was just a huge open area to explore. Like I used to cycle my bike going around there. There wasn't much traffic. It was a private ground. I used to play for the football team. Our chant was, you'll never beat the mental, was our, because they called us the mental because it was the mental hospital. It was the colloquialism in my town. So you'd say, I live up by the mental, was what people would say. I think that's more of a derogatory term over here maybe now as well.
Mental, yeah.
Mental, yeah. It's like it's not quite like some of the other worse versions of that word. But like, yeah, for when I was growing up, that's all it was. And then you'd often have the thing, I think I said this before on this podcast maybe, where like you'd have like a dog run on the field during a football game. We would often have patients who would just wander over because there's all these people there, and then they just like wander onto the field, and you'd have to be like, oh, sorry, there was just like usually old geriatric sort of folks with, a lot of them are probably just there were some people who had like were developmentally delayed or whatever, but a lot of people who just had Alzheimer's or worse. So they'd wander on. But we knew all these people because I lived at the end of the street, so they'd all walk up and down the whole time. Sometimes they'd accidentally walk into our back gardens, you know what I mean? Sometimes they were all, I grew up in like a world where there was all these like interesting psychiatric patients walking around the neighborhood all the time. And you just kind of get to know them all. But yeah, they used to wander on the field and they'd be like, oh no, sorry, bring them home.
There was a special like card the referee had that was like a different color.
Exactly, a blue card. Yeah. Stop the game for a second. But the refs often would be like, what the fuck's going on? They were like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just Charlie.
It's just Charlie.
Give him a second. He'll be off in a second.
Oh my God.
There you go. Anything, Jesse? Anything?
I mean, there's a steam engine museum, but I feel like museums are automatically older by default. I don't know. I've seen a caveman's corpse all gussied up for us one time. You guys remember the good old caveman days? I don't know. Yeah, I pulled the whistle on a steam whistle in the museum. That was cool.
Oh, that's it.
But that's unfair.
See, I go on, yeah.
I was just gonna say, speaking of museums, there's a thing I want to go see next time I go to New England. That's since I've played all of the Silent Hill games since my last trip to New England. The Gillespie house from Silent Hill 1 is based on a real spooky ass house in Maine. Yeah, like a Silent Hill is loosely based on a bunch of different places in New England, essentially. So
Foggy makes sense.
Yeah, so I want to go visit the real Gillespie house.
Man, check it out. Yeah, all that horror. Go check out I did all the stuff you said. Go to the spooky stuff in what's it
Salem.
called?
In Salem, yeah. Salem. Oh yeah. How was your Salem trip? We never.
Oh yeah. Thanks you gave me some recommendations. It was good. I feel like I talked to some people who were there because it was like really hot and warm and nice and humid. So it kind of felt a little bit, they say that like, oh, it feels more Salem-y, and you go in August or in autumn, I mean, and it's like really feels very witchy. But yeah, it was great. My daughter loved. There was a couple of little fun. There's a couple of like competing spooky witch museums and like little, you go through a bunch of rooms with some fucking spooky people and they jump out at you. And she's like just turned 6, so like we went in one room and there was like the evil leprechaun. There was like the evil golem and the fucking all that shit. And then some of them moved, so she made me go first through everything. And then when we did it, she was like, I want to do it again. And like it was like pretty dead there, and it was like, we just go through again. She was like, yeah, go ahead. So like we did it all again, and she loved that. The coolest thing we did was it wasn't very spooky, but there was like a shop that had like almost like a magical like fantasy kind of tour you would do, where you went in a room and the door closed behind you, and then they had like a wizard hologram popped up and said blah 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 blah, and like point your wand over here, and then my daughter did, and the door, like a wall opened the door, and then we went downstairs and it was like all of these little activities to do in this place. So it was kind of like, it wasn't very witchy, that part of it, but we went to a bunch of like little pop-up stores that were around. It was great fun. It was just, everyone was like having a good time hanging out there. It's also like it's weird because it's like a witchy town, but it's also like very New Englandy, like red bricky. It just feels historical in a non-witchy way as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it feels like a bit of a clash sometimes, where you're like expect it. Although we also saw the house from Hocus Pocus is just down the road as well.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's right there. So there's loads of that shit.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was cool. If I went again, I'd go in the fall. As
it's way more. Yeah, it kind of just feels like a normal town the rest of the year, and then in the fall it transforms into fucking Halloween town.
It was like around July 4th as well, so kind of everywhere was busy around there when we were going through. But yeah, it was good fun. Liked it. Good shit. Jesse, you are fortunate to be blessed with youth. In 10 years' time, when we talk to you, you'll be like, hey, remember when you didn't have to load your gun before you went to the grocery store? Well, you live in Canada, so you'll probably be okay, actually.
Yeah, we'll be chilling. You guys remember when you didn't have to stop and gas up your moose to get to work? Oh, good old days.
Put coal in your car to run your Irish coal car.
That's right.
You ever seen a moose? You guys ever seen moose?
I've seen mooses.
I've never seen a moose.
You've seen some moose? You've seen some wild moose? You get wild moose up there, Jesse?
Yeah, they just roam the streets. No, yeah, we were up north a little bit, and there was one really far away, luckily. They are huge. They're not like regular. You don't think like, oh, it's a bigger deer. No, they're like, you ever see a Ford F-150 ever in your life? What if one of them was 2 of them high?
What if you're
big,
kneeling down in the middle of the road? I've always wanted to see one, because whenever I see a picture of one, because yeah, you're right. If you see a picture, you're like, oh yeah, it's like a big horse. But then whenever you see like a picture of it, like beside a big horse or a human, it's like, what?
It's like a dinosaur. It's fucking.
It really looks like one. Yeah.
So I wonder what it's like in real life, because horses are big. When you see horses in real life, you're like, when you get closer, you're like, oh yeah, fuck, I forgot you're like big. Because you usually see. So what's it like if you see a fucking? I guess if you're that close to a moose, it's probably not good.
Well, you can be close enough to like get an idea of scale. You see cars driving by, and you're like, oh my goodness, that is way bigger than a car. It feels kind of ethereal to see a moose, honestly, because for what you're saying, like it feels so impossibly big. It seems like you're seeing a character out of like a cartoon that would tell you a story or like give you some ominous message. Like,
it's like a cryptid. It's like a cryptid.
Yes. I was literally about to say, yeah,
totally. It's like a mythical creature that, like all the unicorns are extinct now, but the mooses survive.
Yeah. He's voiced by Idris Elba every time.
All right, that's a podcast this week, folks. Thanks for sending in those emails. Podcast@noclip.video. Thanks to all our incredible Battle Pass sponsors, and of course our incredible patrons over at patreon.com/noclip. I already mentioned Dear Dwyery. Moving on to this feed stuff, a couple of other pieces of housekeeping. The patron show went up last week. It was a little bit later this month because I had just come back from all of my traveling. I recorded it in Estonia in my hotel room. If you would like to see some of that project, then head over to the Patreon show and you can check that out, along with a clip from what Jeremy is secretly working on, a documentary about arguably the most played multiplayer map of all time, or at the very least, the one that has been played for the longest amount of time. So if you're interested in what that is, head over to patreon.com/noclip, become a patron, and watch our patron show. We do one every single month. It's usually a good 30, 40, 50 minutes worth of updates and me basically telling you what's going on, early clips of documentaries and much, much more. We are almost done with Dredge. We're filming the stand-ups. They will be filmed by the time you're listening to this, and we're going to get that documentary turned around. I've been editing Dwarf Fortress all this week, trying to get that one as quickly done as possible. We're working on a bunch of other docs as well we've talked about in the patron show. One thing that might happen in the next week is that one of the games that I've been sort of, I won't say embedded on, but there's a couple of studios that for the past couple of years we've been getting footage from them, like development footage, so that when we eventually do the documentary, we will have years and years and years of assets to go back on. We're doing one which is going to be a really sort of like a series about this game, but mostly the like technical side of like a more technical look at games, like how do doors work in games and how does procedural generation work and that type of thing. We've been working with this crowd for about 2 years. It's a small indie group here in the States, and I think they're announcing their game next week. So it's a new studio, new game. You'd never have heard it before, but whenever that happens, we'll basically let you know that that's the game that we're going to be recording that stuff about. And last but not least, by the time I guess the next episode is out, myself and Frank will be at Quake Convention in beautiful Dallas, Texas. QuakeCon is on weekend after next, and we will be there filming a documentary about Quake 3. So come check it out. We will be there. We have PCs in the LAN area. If you see myself and Frank, come say hey. If you have any thoughts about the Quake franchise, and particularly Quake 3, I was about to say Quake 3 Team Arena, Quake 3 Arena, and I guess Team Arena, which turns 25 this year, along with Unreal Tournament, another game that we're looking about doing a documentary on. Come and say hey. We're going to record some interviews there with some id people, past and present, and also record, with fans of Quake 3 and talk about how rad that video game is. Vadiogam. Check out that Vadiogam. Quack 3. All right, let me get out of here before I cancel myself with weird accent. That was such a bad accent, you couldn't even tell where it was from.
Yeah, you can't be canceled for an accent if people can't determine who you're mocking or belittling or impersonating.
Sounded like, was it Venezuela? Well, they've got enough shit to worry about without me doing accents.
Yeah, leave them alone for now.
Exactly. They got enough going on. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Crewcast. Bye.